Hello everyone and welcome back to the Paddy Panda series. Now in today's video we've got something that's a little bit more complex for me, which is electrical stuff. Now we're going to be installing this Sony stereo into our Panda. This is a 169, so year 2008, just if anyone's wondering. And online there's quite a lot of kits about. Now you can see here I've got two fascias, which these two are supposed to remove the original stereo and be able to put in a double DIN size stereo. Now I have installed this once and Dad actually made me remove it because he said it looked rubbish, but we've now come to the conclusion it's the best we can do and I'm going to try and improve it a little bit more today. So I will explain exactly why. Now these are the two fascias. We've got one that's new, one that's old, and they're actually exactly the same, but Dad, being very determined, managed to buy two of the same thinking they'd be different. This one did say it was a kit, direct fit for the car, which it wasn't, and the original one that we tried to fit was a kit for this car and didn't fit either. Now the reason we took it out was because the stereo actually doesn't fit correctly in this fascia. It's too narrow, it's too tall, and it actually, if I bring this over to the camera, you'll see that I had to do a bit of bodge modifications. Now it had a lip all the way around here, and I've basically hacked this away until it managed to fit the cage in. Now inside the dashboard there's no space for a cage. Now normally on the cage, here we are, I'll show you, this goes in before the fascia, should go in, and you should secure it with these little metal tabs which you bend, and that locks it inside the dash. Now the dashboard has nowhere for these to actually secure it. It's completely empty in there. There's nothing for this to, so you can just wobble it around in there. There's no space. So what I've managed to do was wedge it between the fascia, and basically that's it. So I'm going to go into the car, I'll show you how to remove the stereo, and then we're going to try and install this better than I did before, and I'll talk you through how I did that. Okay, so you join me inside the car, and you can see here this is the original stereo that came with the car. And to remove this, there's four little holes. Now it's a specific tool. I got this off of Amazon. You can see they're two little U-shaped clips, and they basically just push in here one at a time. So once they're in, you just push out ever so slightly outwards and pull, and the stereo will come out. Now you can remove these, put them to the side, and that's it. The stereo unit will come out. Now this is actually a single stereo. You can see here it's got just a single piece. Now what we'll do is look at all the wiring behind, which is there. We've got ourselves a clipped in antenna, which we'll just try and pull out like so, and then pull, obviously being careful not to pull too hard on the cables themselves. It's just a matter of removing them one by one. You see this comes out like this, looks like a Lego brick. There we go, he's out. And that is the back of the stereo, if anyone's wondering. Let me hold it up the right way. There we go, that's the back right there. So that is out. Okay, what I've decided to do is remove the Phillips first. One at the top here. That's the third one. There we are. And this should come out with the cage. I'm going to pull on the cage to keep tension on the Allen key. Oh, hello, Reg. And keep him with it. Now, trying to get those cables through so I don't drop that bolt. There we are. Right then, so now it's time to actually get the cage ready with the fascia. Now, what I've done with the fascia is, you can see I've drilled 4 holes on each of these little pieces. We've got one here, one here, one here, and one here. And what that does is that enables me to push this fascia in, and then I can actually screw into the side of the dashboard. Now you can't see it inside, and it doesn't obviously stop you from putting the old stereo back in, but what this does is give you 4 secure little mounting points to put the fascia in with the stereo cage. Now on the stereo cage, last time we didn't like it because this piece of metal at the front was showing, and obviously silver through the black stereo and the grey fascia didn't look so good. So what I've done is I've literally just sprayed these little pieces black at the front, so hopefully they'll blend in a bit more. Okay, so now it's time for us to get this fascia inside the car. Now, as you can see, inside there's absolutely nowhere to attach this fascia to the car. So inside, if I put that in, you can see that it fits okay, but inside, there's nothing to attach it to. So, what I've done, oh, that's dirty, that needs a clean. That's, I suppose, 2008 dust. But inside, you can see these holes I've drilled. One there, and one there, and another one up there. So just gently pilot drill those, and then you can put in some very small self-tapping screws to hold this fascia in place. Right then, now reusing the 4 screws that we got out of the old cage, I'm going to attach these to our newly pilot drilled holes, which are 2 on the bottom and 2 on the sides. Okay, so now the 2 bottom ones are in, I'm just going to do the 2 side ones up here. Now obviously when pilot drilling this, be very careful not to come through the side of the dash, but if you do it correctly you'll have no problems. Just be very careful when doing it up, making sure that it's all fine. Now of course, this way you might think, hang on, I don't want to drill through my dash, understandable, but it's not doing any irreversible damage. But if anyone watching this has any clue on how to install one of these dash kits better than I'm doing it, which isn't going to be difficult because this isn't the greatest method, please let me know in the comments because I'd love to know, but this is the best way that I've found so far. So that fascia is now in, it's time to get the cage in. Okay, now cage is going in. Now, the cage doesn't sit beautifully in there, just because it's actually not a great fit, as I've mentioned before. But what we're going to do is bend as many of these tabs down as possible. Inside here, there's just these metal tabs. I'm just going to wedge as many of these down as I can around the fascia to try and get it to stop coming out this way. Right, there we go. Cage is pretty secure in there, so just give it a little pull, make sure. And now it's time to hook up the stereo. Now one relatively important thing is the microphone for the stereo, so you can receive hands-free calls. Okay, so I'm going to actually have this on the pillar up here, because that slots behind that piece of trim really nicely. And we can face it my way, and I can also route the wire down here, so that's what we're going to do. Okay, so lifting up this trim, I'm just going to slide the wire all the way in there, like so. All the way down the side of the dash here. That went really well. I'm actually surprised at that myself. Make sure that that's all in there relatively well. There we go, that looks good. And then we'll move on down here. Now on camera I forgot to mention how I got the wire to the stereo cage. Now I used my long lanky arms to put one hand through the stereo cage and one hand up behind the dash, and luckily I could connect the 2. Okay, so I've got this now coming out from the top of the dash, and that has just tucked up there really nicely. You can see there, it's just literally being pulled up out the way of the pedals. Now depending on how much tension there is when I've finished, I'm going to see if I need to cable tie it under there, just so it doesn't droop down in front of the pedals. Okay, but for now we've just got this excess wire, which I'm going to bundle up into. Okay, so here we are. The Panda has a generic plug, this model exactly, this is the 169. It has the generic plug for the aftermarket stereo, so this wire that came with our stereo is going to plug directly into the car, which is really handy. So what we'll do is we'll get all the wires out of the dash, pulling them one by one. We've got the microphone and the main connector for the stereo, which is right here. So what we'll do is bring the stereo down. I'm going to use the gear stick as a resting spot, and what we will do is plug in our 2 connectors. Now they only go one way. You can see that this one is to the left slightly and this one is slightly to the right of the connector, and that's the same follows up here. So right to the right, plug nice and easy, and left to the left. And there we go, we're on. Now after that we've got our microphone level. There we are, the red one here. That says mic on it. And the aerial in this case we won't be using because we're only going to be using this for Apple CarPlay. So what we'll do is just make sure the wires go back in there all nicely. Make sure they're in all nice and tight, make sure they're not catching on anything. And then once they're all clear, the stereo can slide in and you hear it click in nice and secure there. Now the final thing before the fascia goes on is just check that it works. We've got a light. We're here. We're on. I can hear the sound coming through the speakers. So what we'll do is just pop that little devil on there like so. So there you are, you can see Apple CarPlay is on. Wicked. Well happy.
Good man.
Yep, so that's a good old upgrade that. Looks much better than the old one. Okay, so that sums up the install of the Sony stereo. Now, really happy with how it looks. Apple CarPlay is going to be amazing compared to what we had before, which was absolutely nothing. Now, these fascias, if you're not going to get creative with it, they're not just a plug and play. You can't just put them in and will they work. They are a bit fiddly, and if anyone knows any better methods than what I've got, which is just drilling it into the side of the dashboard and filing it down, please let me know in the comments because I'd like to see how anyone else has done it. There's not many videos on YouTube. There's one, he sort of said what to do but didn't show it, so I just guessed and did it my own way. So I thought I'd show how I did it, and it actually looks really quite good, considering me and Dad would probably say I botched it a little bit, but it does the job, and we're going to be jiving to some tunes on the way home. So it's time for me and Dad to have a coffee, and I will catch you in the next video. See ya.